Essential Learning and Learning Essentials. Part 1. Learning and Enabling Learning, Embracing and Implementing the Curricula. Clip 2, August 2020. Direction de la Formation Générale des Jeunes. In the previous section, we discussed learning in the broadest sense of the term and learning as a process. In this presentation, we'll look at the academic learning prescribed in the Quebec Education Program. In the current context, where many Quebec students have not returned to school before the fall of 2020, and the academic learning achieved in the months leading up to their return will vary from one student to the next, there is a sense of urgency regarding the necessary essential learning and the learning content to be prioritized. Although the teaching of certain subjects will no doubt present additional challenges related to the rules of social distancing that will be in effect in elementary and secondary schools, it is important to remember that all the subject areas prescribed in the Quebec Education Program are essential. Indeed, the relevance of a discipline cannot be evaluated in terms of its immediate and specific usefulness. Only through interdisciplinary learning can students acquire a complete and diversified education, which will enable them to acquire a worldview and develop their creativity and critical judgment. It's up to the schools to put in place the measures that best correspond to their reality to ensure that the entire school curriculum can be taught. Determining what constitutes essential learning means selecting the learning experiences that are essential for all students from a range of possibilities. As a result, the Quebec Education Program, commonly known as the QEP, groups together the essential learning that students must achieve during their educational path. Whether it's a question of the broad areas of learning, subject areas, or cross-curricular competencies, or content specific to each program of study, the QEP brings together the various learning experiences that have been identified as essential to preparing our young people to contribute to tomorrow's society. First, it's important not to view the current situation as having to play catch-up to cover the subject content that some students may have missed during the 2019-2020 school year, but rather as an opportunity to plan teaching according to the needs of all students and to make room for pedagogical flexibility. To learn more about these topics, we invite you to view the second and third parts of this series, which are entitled Identifying Student Needs to Adjust Educational Planning and Differentiated Instruction Through Pedagogical Flexibility, a Response to Multi-Ability Classrooms. Secondly, it's important to equip students with tools to teach them to learn. In this regard, the teaching of strategies is important, since strategies are tools that can be reinvested from one situation to another, from one discipline to another, from one year to another, and from one cycle to another. Teaching strategies helps make students autonomous in their learning. But what is a strategy and what is its purpose? Strategies are systematic and conscious plans, actions and reasoning that learners choose and adapt for each of the tasks they must accomplish. They often involve knowing what to do, how and when to do it, and why such a strategy is useful. A strategy is therefore a set of means and behaviors implemented to achieve a given task. Strategies enable students to, among other things, find meaning in what they are learning, process information, express ideas, face problems and try to solve them independently, communicate information effectively, reflect on and evaluate their progress. Strategies are often classified by type, and this classification differs somewhat among researchers. The following three categories of strategies emerge from the QEP. Emotional or socio-affective strategies are used to control emotions and attitudes towards learning. They also concern interpersonal relationships. For example, if need be, students can encourage one another by building on each other's strengths, motivate, retreat to a quiet corner, concentrate, ease the tension of a new context by using relaxation techniques or laughter, or by remembering goals, progress, and available resources, reduce anxiety. Cognitive strategies are used to solve a problem or complete a task and may include noting significant similarities and differences between two or more things, comparing, making informed guesses based on prior knowledge or visual or contextual cues in a text, inferring, writing down relevant information, taking notes, or grouping ideas according to common attributes, making semantic connections. Metacognitive strategies encourage students to be aware of how they learn and the strategies they use in their learning, and to know what strategy to use in a given situation, such as deciding in advance to notice certain details, paying selective attention, anticipating what is needed to achieve a goal, planning, reflecting on what has been learned, self-assessment. Subject-specific strategies have been identified in the various programs of study and progression of learning documents. It is therefore important to refer to these documents to determine the strategies to be taught in each cycle. Now, how do we teach these strategies? That's the big question. Here are some important points to consider when teaching strategies. Guide your students to choose the strategy that would be most useful based on the goals you have identified. Make sure they understand the usefulness of the strategy being taught or used. And model the application of the learning strategy before asking students to use the strategy independently. Among the set of learning strategies prescribed in the various curricula, activating students' prior knowledge is essential for helping students make connections between what they already know and the new learning they will acquire. There are several possibilities. You could, for example, encourage collaborative classroom practices. By sharing their understanding, students effectively activate or reactivate their prior knowledge and consolidate the integration of their learning. Review important concepts and ideas several times during the school year. Having several opportunities to reuse the same knowledge and skills, rather than seeing it just once and not reusing afterwards, is one way to ensure understanding and retention. Provide frequent feedback during the learning process to allow students to check their understanding and adjust as necessary. This ongoing feedback allows them to reactivate their prior knowledge and make connections with new concepts. Vary the type of activities students must perform in a learning situation. When students do a series of similar activities, they develop automatisms. Although this process is a necessary step in competency development, it's also important to vary the activities offered within a single learning situation, as well as from one learning situation to another. Thus, the student must think about the strategies, prior knowledge, and skills they need to accomplish the required task. Transfer of learning can also be an effective practice to adopt to help students learn how to learn, since it develops their ability to reuse and effectively combine strategies, approaches, and content acquired in previous situations by adapting them to new contexts. Indeed, school learning is not linear, but rather a spiral. It is a constantly evolving construct that is built and transformed each time content is learned or a type of situation is encountered again. Thus, the more frequent and diversified the opportunities for reinvestment are, the greater the chances that students will be able to transfer their learning and recombine it independently in new situations. Transfer can occur at a variety of levels, including from one set of concepts to another, from one subject to another, from one school year to the next, and through school and daily activities. Finally, the QEP is designed to be taught in multi-year learning cycles. This mode of organization favors long-term pedagogical measures and supports the continuity of learning while respecting the learning rate of students. This means that teachers should not feel the weight of their entire subject on their shoulders, but rather that learning could be approached through cycle teams or school teams and through differentiated instruction that responds to each student as need be.